so I've tried a lot of different like fad diets and stuff, and they all have their own app and stuff. But finally, the one I landed on was something called the Diet Quality Score, and it's just really simple. The author of this book just boiled it down to like good foods and bad foods. Eat more of the good food, less of the bad foods, and then came up with this system for scoring it. It's just kind of an arbitrary system, and it worked really well for me. But I was running around with sheets of paper. Every day I was driving my wife nuts because I had a new sheet of paper every day that was laying on the counter all the time, and I was bubbling and stuff. So I decided to make an app of that. And so this is, we've got your, this is how we get started, and I'll just log in. I'll log in as, I don't know if I've created this user or not. Yeah, just, okay, so. This was the. Okay, so get logged in, and it's just a really simple interface to enter the different foods you got. That was right, there was a vegetable, so I ate some broccoli, and I add that. I've got a note here from the book that actually says what a common sense serving size is of those different things, so you know when to add, more than one serving and stuff like that. And so you can add those in. Okay, I accidentally. Oh, I hit it again. So I hit that one by accident. It works out nicely. So I can click on it. When I hit one by accident, I click on it, and it says that item's already clicked. I can just ignore this message and exit out, or I can unclick that serving. When I did that, you'll notice that the daily total, decreased as it should have. And each time, also I can move from day to day. Each time that I'm moving, this is, since I just introduced this user to the system, there obviously aren't any other journals for any other dates. So each time that I go to a date that hasn't been created, it's creating that journal in the database. It's going, it's finding that there's not one, and so it is initiating a new entry in the database for that day. It's redrawing the screen and everything. And then I get back up to today, and you can see the stuff that was already entered. That's pretty easy for any kind of natural foods or one ingredient items, but when you get into more complicated things, you might need a little help in knowing how to score it. And so you go in here to something like macaroni and cheese, and then search, and it's going to hit the API and come back, and we'll choose, okay, let me actually make that, let's spell the word and so you got the USDA. It's querying the USDA and restaurant database, and like a packaged foods database as well. So you've got like whole foods, also packaged foods, and also restaurant items. And so we click in here, and it's going to come up and say, okay, well, this is what you clicked. This is what it says a serving is. It says a serving is 1 cup at 310 calories. How many servings did you eat? Okay, 1 serving. And here's where the fun part for me. At this point, it's going to make a recommendation of what that serving is. And so it's going to say, okay, well, here's our suggestion that it would ideally it would be 1.3 refined grains. You'd have some dairy in there, and then you make the final decision on which things to include. Okay, I'm going to count it as 2 refined grains and a dairy, and then when I hit submit, it's going to go to the database, update it, and update the view here. I was pretty proud of that algorithm because when you choose that food and it has the 370 calories for macaroni and cheese, and what that represents actually, it becomes a point in 4-dimensional space, 370 calories away from the origin, a certain number of protein, fat, sugars, and dietary fiber away from the origin. And so what I did was took each one of the food items, the 10 different categories, the proteins and the sweets and everything, and I made little tiny vectors of them I used 2.5 calories. I could have chosen 0.1 calorie, but I just made a vector heading in the direction of the different makeups of their macronutrients, and I just fired all 10 of them, and then said, okay, which one of them is closest to that target point? Okay, hold that one off to the side. We're gonna we'll book that one, and then that became the new origin point. And so it just drew a segmented line to that target point, and that was how it came up with the recommendation for how to categorize the foods. I was pretty proud of that. And of course, I can. Then I can actually log in. I've actually been tracking it somewhat truly for myself for the last few days. And actually, during this project, there's been a pretty bad situation. That day I just didn't track. But then you can see here that this day I was kind of split on. That was Thanksgiving, and it just kind of turned into a beer and cake situation towards the end of the day. But so I mean, this is something that I was using on sheets of paper every day. And I just thought that this is the one diet fad or one diet scheme that I know of that doesn't have an app associated with it. And so this was what I did with it. Are there any questions about how it's working or anything?
So if you eat too much low-fat dairy, it becomes bad. The first 4 times, or the first 3 times is good.
Yeah.
But now
positive,
you just
positive,
stop.
positive, and then it's neutral, and then it's eventually negative. So,
cool.
Yeah.
Whereas you can't eat too many fruits or vegetables.
Right, exactly. Everything else eventually does become bad, but apparently you can eat all the bananas. Yeah. Anybody else have any questions?